Thank you, Alexei. I'm excited to greeting everyone on the fifth Breaking Bug community event. And I encourage you to hit subscribe button if you look us on YouTube. So that you won't miss new updates of our event. Give me a couple of seconds to share my presentation for you. Everything is going okay?
Yes.
Yeah, we could see that.
Yeah, thank you. I would like express gratitude to the organizers for invitation to this event and the opportunity to share with you layer test strategy approach. Nowadays, test automation on the project is essential to ensure frequent releases with stable quality. However, test automation requires investments, especially on the early stages. So having a right test automation strategy on place is crucial for business success. Layer test automation is a comprehensive approach that allows you to achieve this goal. I believe this presentation will be valuable experience for all of us, and I'm looking forward to the discussion at the end of this presentation. My name is Ivan Protasov, and I'm a lead software engineer in test with over 5 years experience in this sphere. Mainly, I focus on test automation process setup on a project from test automation strategy development to its implementation with test automation framework development, integration it into continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline. In addition, I've been participated as an interviewer, so there is a possibility that we will meet again on a project interview. And now let's move to the content of this presentation. At the beginning, I outline test automation goals and how they affect on the project. Then we make a deep dive into understanding the system under test. That is a foundation of any test strategy. Then I explain key concept of this presentation. It is a layer test strategy, and then I show ways how to implement it. At the end, I share with you a comparison of implementation of different approaches, so you will be able to make an informed decision of selecting a right test strategy on your project. Without further ado, let's get started. And I want to start with the definition of test strategy. In simpler terms, the strategy describes a level of testing and set of tests that is required for test application. Please keep in mind this definition, because whole presentation revolves around this definition. And during this presentation, I will explain level of testing and test those needed in these levels. any test strategy starts with the goal setup, and for test automation, the goals are improve quality. It sounds self-explanatory. However, I want to emphasize that the automated tests should not be developed just in the sake of it. Automated tests should bring value to a project, such as help us understand the system under test. In other words, automated test can work as executable specification, revealing true capabilities of an application. Also, automated tests should reduce, not introduce risk on the project. That means that automated test should work as a safety net for production from a bug, and don't damage production data. Other three goals are connected to test itself. So tests should be easier to run, providing fast feedback about health of an application. A test should be easy to write, so you have to choose right tools for automated test development and require minimal maintenance as the system evolves. The next topic is system and the test that is a foundation for any test strategy. Simply speaking, system under test at whatever thing we are testing, and the methods that are exercise and inspect our system under test are called point of control and observation, or observation points. For understanding how it works, let's imagine a common application three-tier application architecture, where Angular web application stands for presentation tier, Java Spring Boot application stands for application tier, and PostgreSQL stands for data tier. As you can see, manual key or UI automated test has only one point of control and observation, and this is not optimal way of checking integration our backend with third-party services like AWS. Instead, we can use Spring Boot test libraries for checking this integration in isolation. Another example is that if we want to check visibility logic of UI elements, for this test, we don't need application tier and database tier. We can use Angular native test libraries such as Jasmine, and check this logic in isolation. These examples show significance of understanding your system under test. After analysis, you can define those steps that are needed for checking application. However, it is not the answer on the next question about volume of testing. And for doing this, we can use the test pyramid that was proposed by Mike Kohn. How it works? The closer we to the base of the pyramid, the more tests launched in isolation. That means that tests passed faster, and we can launch more tests during the development lifecycle. That is exactly what we want to achieve goals that I mentioned earlier. Please don't be too attached to name of this level, you definitely can write unit test for web application. However, due to simplicity of this concept, you can use it as a good rule of thumb of ranging volume of testing. And now, sorry. Here is an example from my project where after analysis of system under test, I identify unit, component, integration, contract, business, UI behavioral test, and then I arrange them to the pyramid. In addition, I separate testing into suits by team responsibilities. You can make a screenshot or return to the slide in the record to examine it more precisely. And now we move to the core idea of this presentation is layer test strategy. If the system under test has layered architecture that we usually have, we can consider each layer of this application as a separate system under test. That means that each layer we can test in isolation, and it gives us plenty of benefits, such as avoidance of indirect testing. Our execution is robust, fast, and easy to run due to isolated test nature. Also, we achieve better logic coverage on each layer, and we can simply locate the defects, if any. Also, this strategy enables us to perform defensive testing, simulating never happens a situation using mocks and stubs. Also, running tests in isolation reduce risk, and we don't modify real system under test. And the last benefit, but it stand out from my perspective, layer test strategy encourage collaboration between development and testers. Teams make development more smooth and harmonious. However, layer test strategy is not silver bullet and has several limitations. The first is obvious. It requires high seniority from test team, because team members must be familiar with native testing tools. Also, not always application have that testing tools that allows us to launch their components in isolation. And finally, sometimes native testing tools lack of integration with other common testing tools, such as reporting or integration with BT scenarios libraries. And how to implement this layer test strategy on the practice? The simplest approach is some containers. The main idea of subcontinuous approach is that test automation framework replicate actions that made web applications through API calls. Such way we isolate from more presentation tier and achieve more fast and robust test execution. However, and on this side, we still have higher level of integration. Although this approach not allows to use all benefits of layer test strategy, it is a good starting point, and we can then develop our subcontinuous test into test doubles using mocks and stubs that isolate our system understands from other layers of our application. In the last part of discussion about implementation, I'm going to point out common implementation mistake that is called ice cream anti-pattern. How it happens at the early stages of a project, team rely on manual testing that is cheap and convenient. But when project progress and becomes more comprehensive, manual team is not able to perform a whole regression during 2-week sprint. And here is a time when test automation come on again. And the first class starting with UI test. Test is a good solution because we test all at once with less number of tests. In addition, we can reuse manual test cases and that reduce our efforts to automated test development and requirements to test automation team. And finally, manual QAs and customers tend to think that the UI tests are more reliable because they replicate human actions that they do on daily basis. However, it leads us to inverted the test parameter that looks like an ice cream cone, and it leads to a long execution and flaky tests that don't bring much value to our project. It is opposite that it is opposite of the goals that I outlined in the beginning of presentation. In the final part of my speech, I want to share with you test automation metric comparison from different projects. First project is relatively small. It has active development duration of 6 months. And on this project, test double approach was implemented. Other project has relatively the same size, but on the one project, a subcontinuous approach was implemented, and on the last project, focus was on UI tests. All this on all of this project, we have the same developers to test ratio 1 to 4, and relatively the same achieve test automation coverage. However, we have a difference in regression execution time. On the first project, execution took less than a minute. That is impressive time in comparison to other projects. If we compare subcontinuous approach and the UI-focused approach, we can see that in UI-focused approach, we wrote less number of tests. However, regression took 8 hours, and you can imagine how much cost is execution of UI test on AWS environment in comparison of API tests that not require user experience. I hope this information was helpful for you, and you will choose the right strategy on your project. For this presentation, I use materials from XUnit Test Patterns book by Gerard Mersaras, Martin Flower website, and documentation of ISTQB Foundation. Thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to discussion.
Thank you, Ivan. So guys, feel free to type your questions in chat. So far we have a bunch of questions from Maya. Let me read it for you. Sorry, I missed it. Okay, so bunch of questions from Maya. So who creates strategy at your point?
We developed a test strategy in collaboration with the manual QA team, because leader of QA is manual QA engineer. So they work on the manual part, and I optimize test automation approach for each of a project.
Is client involved in that process?
In my cases, a client was not involved in this process. He or she just approve proposed strategy, but as far as the concern, on other project situation may differ.
Okay. What should lead to do when he or she see, I mean, engineer on the project, that the team is moving toward to ice cream anti-pattern way? It's a tricky question.
First of all, you should raise this question on retro and provide argumentation that I mentioned on this presentation. You can revise goals of test automation. Yes, it's hard. It's hard to change business processes on the project, but I'll advise you to start with subcontinuous approach. Stop writing UI tests, because probably you already complete end-to-end user scenario, and start focus on API tests.
Okay. A question from Ekaterina. Should automation QA write unit tests instead of a dev team if they refuse to write them by themselves?
Yes, a test automation engineer can write all kind of tests on a project. Also, it is called shift left testing. Testing, and if you know native testing tools such as Spring Boot test library, you definitely can write component and unit tests on a project. As per, however, you need approval from your development team, and actually it's a sweet point when you start to work with development team together. You see their solution and you feel more attached to what happens in the project and the final result.
Okay, thank you. Question from Tatiana. Many thanks for great material. What is the fastest or slowest framework for API test automation, and what sometimes may lead to this selecting not the fastest one?
Yes, it's a good question, and I also faced with it before. The fastest way to check API is using native tools that emulate a network environment around backend application. So check technology of your backend and choose native tools for this purpose. However, it is not possible to use such tools because, as I mentioned earlier, it is require higher seniority level of test automation engineers, and it is not possible on the project. Also, there are some integration issues with some integration issues of tools that you already use on the project, so that it is better to use standard API test tools such as REST Assured library.
Do I understand you right that REST Assured is your favorite one?
Yes, REST Assured is my favorite library. Moreover, it is a part of Spring Boot test library, and it has native integration with Mocha MVC that is a core part of integration API testing in Java stack.
Okay, super. A question or maybe a concern from Dmitry. Are you sure in provided metrics to compare the strategies? Look like you try to compare Apple with a car. Maybe comparing of cost can help to determine main differences. What do you think?
Yes, it was complicated for me to collect metrics because not all project want to share it, and especially from finance perspective, we work. I sign a NDA contract and not able to share whole information. However, it is obvious that isolated tests run faster and more stable than UI tests, and I think you can use these numbers as reference points, and I try out to provide examples with relatively the same size of project, and developers to testers ratio. I understand that teams are different, people are different, and the numbers may vary. However, you can, from this comparison, you can estimate a scale of different approaches implementation.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. Again, question from Maya. How much time does it take to create a strategy?
It depends on size of the project and the team experience. If you work with a familiar project, it may take less than a week. However, if you work with a new project and you want to try out new technology, you have to spend time on completing several proof of concept comparisons, make estimation, and then establish optimal test automation strategies. So it can take from 1 week to 3 weeks from my perspective, a month.
Okay. Another question from Maya. Are there good or bad strategy? Can this high-level doc change during the project?
There are no good or bad strategies. All strategies should be implemented in the right way. For example, you can write a single UI and end test and call it a day on a proof of concept project, or you can write several low-level tests that are much cheaper in development if you have MVP projects. So it depends, every time it depends on situation you should handle.
Okay, thank you. Here is not a question, just
I'm sorry, I haven't asked the last part of this.
Sorry.
Of this question.
Ivan. Yes, please go on.
Yes, definitely. Test strategy document can evolve during development of the project, especially when project moves from the active phase to the maintenance phase, and we can change goals of test automation, and whole strategy may be reworked or revisited. Yeah.
Okay, and the last, not a question, just a comment. Maybe you can agree with it or not. So Konstantin is not sure that testers can help with unit testing, and not sure if QA should take a responsibility completely for unit testing, just to avoid developers from the quality on their side. So are you agree with that, or just you have a different opinion?
I partially agree with this statement. Indeed, after test automation team don't motivate to write a unit test on a project. And unit tests is basically responsibility of development team. However, test automation engineer can revise and read this test, add some additional assertions on this test, and as a result, we will get better test coverage and on the project. With when project progress, we start. You start work closer to development team, and you gain a trust between each other. So at the end, the automated tests become a part of development team, but with a focus on testing, and there is and this stage there is no issue that automated testers write unit tests and help developers to save time when we need to release a feature faster, because you're sure that in the short time this feature will be covered by unit component and the integration tests.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. And the question from Konstantin again. So, how complex, easy it is to develop API testing for full stack app, where front and backend are tightly coupled and no formal API specs exist?
Give me a second to figure out what to do in this situation. First of all, I'd like to recommend to look at the API first approach on a project, but it's a good example where we need unit integration in both applications, UI and backend, front and backend application. And in this situation, probably we need more high-level integration tests. However, it is a result of such design of the application, this architecture. And from my perspective, it is dangerous tightly couple front end and backend logic.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. Okay, I suppose that was the one question, last question. So we have to move forward to my presentation since we have 20 minutes left. So guys, if you have any questions to Ivan, you can just post it to the chat anyway, and he will answer you offline outside our meeting. Okay.
Thank you for good questions. It was really interesting conversation with you. Thank you.